I never thought a simple day at the shopping mall would change my life forever. One moment I was working my retail job, trying to make ends meet. The next I was being humiliated in front of dozens of people. But what happened next? A voice I'd never heard before would turn my world upside down. If you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or treated like you don't matter, this story will show you that sometimes the universe has bigger plans than you could ever imagine. Stay until the end because the twist will leave you speechless. My name is Elaine Marshall, and 6 months ago, I was just another face in the crowd. At 26, I was working at Elegant Trends, an upscale boutique in Grandview shopping center, barely scraping by on retail wages and commission. My divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier, and I was starting over with nothing but a small apartment, a pile of debt, and the hope that somehow things would get better. That Saturday morning started like any other. I arrived at the store 30 minutes early, as I always did, to make sure everything was perfect. The displays needed to be just right, the clothes properly steamed, and the jewelry cases spotless. Working in luxury retail taught you that presentation was everything, and our customers expected perfection. I needed this job desperately, and I wasn't going to give anyone a reason to let me go. The mall was unusually busy that day. Families strolled through the wide corridors, teenagers clustered around the food court, and well-dressed shoppers moved from store to store with their designer bags. From my position behind the counter, I watched the steady stream of people pass by our storefront. Some would glance at our window displays, others would walk right past without a second look. I had learned to read people quickly in this job. You could tell within seconds who was actually going to buy something and who was just browsing. Around noon, she walked in. The woman was probably in her 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair and wearing what looked like a very expensive cream-colored suit. Her handbag alone probably cost more than I made in a month. She had that look about her, the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, never having to check your bank account before making a purchase. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp and demanding. "I need assistance immediately. I have a very important event tonight, and I need the perfect dress." I smiled and walked over to her. "Of course, I'd be happy to help you find something beautiful. What kind of event are you attending?" She looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "A corporate dinner. Very exclusive. I need something that makes a statement but not too flashy, and it needs to be perfect because I'll be photographed." She paused, then added, "I assume you understand the importance of making the right impression?" The way she said it made me feel small, like she was questioning whether someone like me could possibly understand her world, but I kept my smile in place. "Absolutely. Let me show you some of our newest arrivals. We have some stunning pieces that would be perfect for a corporate event." I led her to our evening wear section, pulling out dress after dress. An elegant burgundy number with subtle beading, a sophisticated gray dress with beautiful draping, a stunning royal blue cocktail dress that would photograph beautifully. Each time I showed her something, she would examine it with the intensity of someone inspecting a piece of evidence. "This is too plain," she said, dismissing the gray dress with a wave of her hand. "This color is completely wrong for my skin tone," she declared about the burgundy. "And this," she said, holding up the blue dress, "looks like something a secretary would wear." I tried to hide my frustration. In my 3 years working retail, I had learned that some customers were simply impossible to please. They would come in already convinced that nothing would be good enough, and they would take their dissatisfaction out on whoever was unlucky enough to be helping them. "Let me show you a few more options," I said, maintaining my professional tone. "We just received some gorgeous pieces from our designer collection." For the next hour, I showed her dress after dress. Each one was met with criticism. Too long, too short, too formal, not formal enough, the wrong color, the wrong style, the wrong everything. Other customers came and went while I devoted all my attention to this one impossible woman. I could feel my commission slipping away as I ignored other potential buyers, but I had been trained to give each customer my full attention. "Are you even listening to what I'm telling you?" she snapped when I suggested a beautiful emerald green dress. I specifically said I don't want anything too flashy. This is completely inappropriate. I apologize, I said, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. Let me try a different approach. Could you tell me more about the event? That might help me understand exactly what you're looking for. She sighed dramatically, as if I had asked her to explain quantum physics. It's a corporate dinner for my husband's company. Very important people will be there. I need to look sophisticated, elegant, but not like I'm trying too hard. Is that really so difficult to understand? I nodded and went back to the racks, pulling out a classic little red dress. It was simple, elegant, and timelessly beautiful. The kind of dress that would look perfect at any upscale event. This is lovely, I said, showing it to her. It's one of our best sellers, and the cut is very flattering. She took the dress from me and held it up, examining it from every angle. For a moment I thought I might have finally found something she liked, but then she shook her head. The fabric feels cheap, she said, though it was actually quite expensive. And red is so common. Don't you have anything original? By this time, a small crowd had begun to form outside our store. The mall was at its busiest, and people were shopping for the weekend. I could see other customers looking at our displays, probably wondering if they should come in. But this woman was taking up all my time and attention. Ma'am, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and professional, I've shown you almost everything we have in your size. Perhaps if you could be more specific about what you're looking for, I could help you find exactly what you need. That's when everything changed. Her face turned red with anger. Are you suggesting that I don't know what I want? Are you telling me that I'm being difficult? No, not at all, I said quickly, realizing I had somehow offended her. I'm just trying to help you find the perfect dress. You're trying to help me? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're a sales girl in a mall store. What could you possibly know about style or sophistication? Look at yourself. Look at what you're wearing. I glanced down at my outfit. I was wearing a simple white blouse and a gray skirt, both from our store's collection. It was professional and appropriate for work, but the way she was looking at me, you would have thought I was dressed in rags. I'm sorry if I've somehow upset you, I said, trying to de-escalate the situation. Perhaps one of my colleagues could help you better. Oh, so now you're passing me off to someone else? This is exactly the kind of poor service I've come to expect from places like this. People were definitely watching now. I could see faces pressed against our storefront window, and several customers had actually entered the store and were pretending to browse while obviously listening to our conversation. Ma'am, I really am trying to help you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If you could just tell me what specifically you're looking for, I'm sure we can find something perfect. She stepped closer to me, her voice getting louder. What I'm looking for is competent service. What I'm looking for is someone who knows what they're doing. What I'm looking for is to be treated with the respect that someone of my standing deserves. I felt my cheeks burning with embarrassment. The store was full of people now, all of them watching this woman tear me apart in public. I wanted to say something back, to defend myself, but I knew that would only make things worse. I needed this job. I couldn't afford to lose it. I understand you're frustrated, I said, trying one last time to calm her down. Please let me try to help you. I want you to leave here happy with your purchase. Happy? She practically shrieked. How can I be happy when I've wasted over an hour of my time with someone who clearly doesn't understand the first thing about customer service? Do you have any idea who I am? Do you know what kind of connections I have? The threat was clear. She was suggesting she could have me fired, could make trouble for the store. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I would not cry in front of all these people. I'm truly sorry, I said. Please, let me get my manager for you. Your manager isn't here, she said, which was true. It's just you and your complete incompetence. That's when I made my mistake. I tried to explain our store policy about returns and exchanges, thinking maybe that would help. I mentioned that if she wasn't satisfied with any purchase, she could always bring it back within 30 days with the receipt. Are you suggesting that I would need to return something? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Are you implying that I might not be satisfied with my purchase? No, I was just trying to reassure you that you're making assumptions about me, she interrupted. You're treating me like some kind of difficult customer who's going to cause problems. I realized there was no way to win this conversation. Nothing I said was going to make her happy. She had decided to be angry, and she was going to take that anger out on me no matter what I did or said. Ma'am, I said, trying one final time to restore some peace, I sincerely apologize if I've done anything to upset you. That was never my intention. I was only trying to help you find something beautiful for your event. She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with rage that seemed completely out of proportion to anything that had actually happened. Then, without warning, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed through the store like a gunshot. Everyone went silent. I stood there, stunned, my cheek burning with pain and embarrassment. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, some people even holding up their phones to record what was happening. That's what happens when you show disrespect to people who matter, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silence. Maybe now you'll think twice before treating your betters so poorly. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run out of the store and never come back. This was the most humiliating moment of my life, and it was happening in front of a crowd of strangers who would probably post videos of it online within the hour. I stood there, frozen, holding my hand to my burning cheek. I could taste blood where I had bitten my tongue. The woman was standing there looking satisfied, like she had just taught me an important lesson. The crowd was silent, waiting to see what would happen next. That's when I heard the voice. Touch my wife again and see what happens. The voice was deep, authoritative, and completely calm. It cut through the silence like a blade. Everyone in the store turned to look at the man who had spoken. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and wearing an expensive-looking suit. But it wasn't his appearance that commanded attention, it was his presence. He moved through the crowd with the kind of confidence that made people step aside without even realizing they were doing it. "Excuse me?" the woman said, clearly confused. "Your wife?" "I don't know what you're talking about." The man walked straight to me and put his arm around my shoulders. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. I had never seen this man before in my life, but he was claiming to be my husband. "You just assaulted my wife," he said, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel. "I saw the whole thing. You slapped her in front of all these people." "I don't know who you think you are," the woman said, "but this girl is just a sales clerk. She was rude to me, and I was simply—" "You were simply nothing," the man interrupted. "You attacked a woman who was trying to help you. You humiliated her in public, and you did it because you thought she couldn't defend herself." The atmosphere in the store had completely changed. People were whispering to each other, and I could hear someone say, "Do you know who that is?" The woman who had slapped me was looking uncertain for the first time since she had entered the store. "I want you to leave," the man said. "Now." "You can't tell me what to do," the woman replied, but her voice had lost its confidence. "You don't own this store." The man smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Actually, I own several stores in this mall, and I can have you banned from all of them. But more importantly, I can have you arrested for assault." As if summoned by his words, 2 security guards appeared at the store entrance. The man must have signaled them somehow, though I hadn't seen him do it. "Is there a problem here?" one of the guards asked. "This woman just assaulted my wife," the man said. "I'd like her escorted out of the mall." "That's ridiculous," the woman protested. "I barely touched her. She was being rude to me." "Ma'am," the security guard said, "we're going to need you to come with us." "Do you know who I am?" the woman demanded. "My husband is very important in this city. You can't treat me like this." "And do you know who I am?" the man beside me asked quietly. For the first time, the woman really looked at him. I saw recognition dawn in her eyes, followed immediately by fear. "Oh God," she whispered. "You're Alexander Stone." I had heard that name before. Alexander Stone was one of the richest men in the country, a tech billionaire who had built his fortune developing software that everyone used but few people understood. He kept a low profile, rarely appeared in the media, but his company was worth billions. "Now you know," he said. And now you're going to leave." The woman looked around the store, probably hoping someone would help her, but everyone was staring at her with a mixture of fascination and disgust. She had gone from being the powerful customer making demands to being the person everyone was judging. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice was shaking. "I'll be filing a complaint about this store and its employees." "Please do," Alexander said. "I'm sure my legal team would be very interested in discussing your behavior today." The security guards escorted her out of the store, and gradually the crowd began to disperse. But Alexander didn't move his arm from around my shoulders. I was still in shock, trying to process what had just happened. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle now. I nodded, though I wasn't sure it was true. My cheek was still throbbing, and I was shaking from the adrenaline. "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't know why you helped me, but thank you." He looked around the store, which was still buzzing with conversation about what had just happened. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" I led him to the back of the store, to a small area behind the counter where we kept supplies. It wasn't much, but it was away from the curious eyes of the remaining customers. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't understand what just happened. Why did you tell everyone I was your wife?" He studied my face for a moment, as if he was trying to decide something. "Because I've been watching you for the past hour, and I was impressed by how you handled yourself. You were professional, patient, and kind, even when that woman was treating you terribly. You didn't deserve what happened to you." "But why did you lie? Why didn't you just tell her to stop?" "Because people like her don't listen to reason," he said. "They only understand power. And claiming you were my wife was the fastest way to make her understand that she had made a mistake." I was quiet for a moment, processing this. "You said you own stores in this mall?" He nodded. "I own several businesses, including a few retail locations, but that's not important right now. What's important is that you shouldn't have to work in an environment where customers think they can abuse you." "It's not usually like this," I said quickly. "Most of our customers are lovely. That woman was just difficult." "Difficult," he repeated. "She assaulted you. That's not difficult, that's criminal." I touched my cheek, which was still sore. "I need this job," I said. "I can't afford to make trouble." "What's your name?" he asked. "Elaine Marshall." "Well, Elaine Marshall, I have a proposition for you, but first let me ask you something. Are you happy working here?" The question caught me off guard. "Happy? I don't know. I'm grateful to have work. I need the money." "That's not what I asked. Are you happy?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I admitted. "I'm not happy. I'm surviving, but I'm not happy. I want to go back to school, maybe study business or marketing, but I can't afford it right now." He nodded, as if this confirmed something he had been thinking. "I have an unusual offer for you. It's going to sound strange, but I want you to hear me out." "Okay," I said, though I was confused about where this conversation was going. "I need a wife," he said simply. I stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "I need a wife. For business reasons. My grandfather left me his company, but there's a clause in his will that says I have to be married by my 32nd birthday, or the inheritance goes to charity. I turn 32 in 6 months." That's crazy," I said. "Why would he do that?" "Because he believed that a man needed a family to keep him grounded. He thought that, without a wife, I would become too focused on work and forget about the important things in life." "But surely you could find someone," I said. "You're successful, you're attractive, you must know lots of women who would be interested." "I've tried," he said, "but every woman I've met has been more interested in my money than in me. They see me as a prize to be won, not a person to be loved, and I don't have time for the kind of courtship that might lead to real love." "So you want a fake marriage?" "A business arrangement," he said. 1 year. After that, we get divorced, and you walk away with enough money to pay for your education and start whatever kind of life you want." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is insane. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "I know that you're honest, hardworking, and decent. I know that you treated that awful woman with more respect than she deserved. I know that you're not the kind of person who would try to take advantage of someone. But marriage? That's huge." "It would be a marriage in name only," he said. "You would have your own room, your own space. We would appear together at public events, but otherwise, you would be free to live your life however you choose. And at the end of the year, you would have enough money to do whatever you want." "How much money?" I asked, then immediately felt terrible for asking. $5 million, he said. I sat down heavily on a stack of boxes. $5 million. It was more money than I had ever imagined having. It was enough to pay off my debts, go to school, buy a house, and still have money left over for the rest of my life. "Why me?" I asked. "Why not hire an actress or a model or someone who would be more convincing as your wife?" "Because actresses and models are looking for publicity and attention. They would want to turn our fake marriage into a real career opportunity. You just want to build a better life for yourself. That's something I can understand and respect." I was quiet for a long time, thinking about his offer. It was completely crazy, but it was also the answer to every financial problem I had ever had. 1 year of pretending to be married to a man I didn't know, and I would be set for life. "What would I have to do?" I asked. "Attend events with me, maybe a dozen times over the course of the year, smile for photographers, let people think we're happily married. That's about it. And you wouldn't expect anything else?" "Nothing else," he said firmly. "This would be strictly business. I'm not looking for romance or companionship. I'm looking for a solution to a legal problem." "I need to think about this," I said. "Of course, take all the time you need. But Elaine, I want you to know that I'm serious about this offer. I think we could help each other." I looked at him. This strange man who had appeared out of nowhere to rescue me from the worst moment of my life. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Would you really have had that woman arrested?" He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. "Absolutely. No one should be allowed to treat another person the way she treated you." "Even though I'm just a sales clerk?" "You're not just anything," he said. "You're a person who deserves to be treated with respect, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth knowing." I felt tears starting to form in my eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of humiliation. They were tears of gratitude. For the first time in months, someone was treating me like I mattered. "I'll think about your offer," I said. "How can I reach you?" He handed me a business card. "My direct number is on there. Call me when you've decided. What if I say no? Then I'll respect your decision and find another solution to my problem, but I hope you'll say yes. I think this could be the beginning of something good for both of us." After he left, I spent the rest of my shift in a daze. The other customers were normal, polite people who treated me with basic human courtesy. It was such a contrast to the woman who had slapped me that I almost couldn't believe it had really happened. When I got home that night, I sat in my tiny apartment and thought about Alexander Stone's offer. It was crazy, impractical, and probably too good to be true, but it was also the chance of a lifetime. I thought about my ex-husband who had left me with nothing but debt and broken dreams. I thought about my job, where I smiled at customers all day and pretended to be happy while I slowly drowned in financial stress. I thought about my mother, who had died 3 years earlier, and how she had always told me that opportunities come to those who are brave enough to take them. The next morning, I called the number on Alexander Stone's business card. "I've made my decision," I said when he answered. "I'll do it." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Once we start this, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said, and for the first time in months, I actually was. "Then welcome to your new life, Mrs. Stone," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the woman who had slapped me had actually done me a favor. Her cruelty had brought Alexander Stone into my life, and he was offering me a chance to start over. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives turn out to be the doorways to our greatest opportunities. I never did find out what happened to that woman, but I hope she learned something from the experience. I hope she realized that treating people with kindness and respect is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. You never know who might be watching, and you never know when your actions might come back to help or hurt you. As for me, I learned that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes a stranger will step in and change your life forever. And sometimes, the universe really does have bigger plans for you than you could ever imagine. Elaine's story proves that we never know what's waiting around the corner. Sometimes our lowest moments lead to our greatest opportunities. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. And remember, you're never as alone as you think you are. Your moment might be just one encounter away.